Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome you today. You're going to be hearing from us at Sable International and our partners at the IDLF Investment Fund in Ireland. So just before I jump into any housekeeping, we're going to be talking very specifically today about the Irish Investment Migration Programme, the IIP, and there's going to be lots of information. So don't worry about taking too many notes. We will be emailing a copy of the webinar to all of you who have registered. And in case any of you lose power during load shedding, if you are being load shed as we speak, you will be able to get a full copy for your records. So yeah, if you look down at the bottom there, last chance to invest. I think, to quote my partner Andrew, sitting up in the corner of the screen there, this is like a closing down sale really for the Irish Investor Programme. So it sounds pretty cheesy, but this genuinely is a call to action on this webinar. So I'm not going to spend too much time on stuff that's not relevant to Ireland. I think most people who have registered today have got a pretty good idea who we are at Sable International. We're a boutique cross-border financial services and immigration business. And we have been around for, I think, 26 years now, and we do specialize in all cross-border matters. And today we'll be focusing on Ireland. And I think the thing that is really hot on, by the way, sorry to introduce myself. My name's Andy Rissick. I know the intro slide's coming shortly where I'll introduce my colleagues, but I'm the Group International Director of Sable International. A big announcement on Valentine's Day, just as we were settling into a romantic glass of champagne. And I think it was probably about 6 hours after we had spoken to Andrew and Pauline to say, you know, is the Irish Investor Programme all good? Because we were actually planning a roadshow to South Africa. Our phones went mad and this little announcement came out that the Irish government were terminating the program pretty much with immediate effect. So the good thing about the Irish government is they made it very clear what the sort of the sort of termination process would look like. And the good news is that we actually do have a fairly narrow window where people can still take advantage of the program. But I think it's important to mention this because 2 days later, the Portuguese government and the Portuguese Golden Visa, also a very popular program, announced the termination of their program. And I've seen subsequently that the Spanish government are doing the same. So I don't think it's really about what's going on individually in each country. This is certainly an EU push. We've been aware of it for a long time. We've heard the EU making concerns about anti-money laundering and, terrorist financing concerns. A lot of shady characters sort of investing into individual countries to gain access to the EU. I have to say that all the programs that we work with are very well run, and I think the due diligence processes are good. But I think that politically the pressure on member countries of the EU is obviously pretty big. So I think that's a little bit of the context. But I think what's really important is that we've always only partnered with the Irish Investor, the IIP fund, and this fund has actually got a window of 3 months in which to take further applications. And that's what we're really going to be talking about today. So please feel free. On the right-hand side of your screens, there's a little Q&A box. I'm going to try and keep the presentation as short as possible. So if necessary, we can have a nice, long and comprehensive Q&A session. And I think that's where you'll all learn, hopefully, as much as you need to. So I've already introduced myself, and then I've got Sarah Young, who works for us at Sable International. She's the investment migration manager for our group. And then welcome to Andrew Parrish and Pauline McElroy, who both work with the IDLF. And it's fantastic to have you on a webinar again. And these are really the two people that you're wanting to be directing all your questions and concerns to. So I look forward to asking them some nice, interesting, and tough questions later on. So just very quickly, why does Sable International like Ireland? And we've been doing these investor solutions for a long time where people can invest and either get a residency or citizenship. And what we like about Ireland, and it certainly hasn't changed now that we've got a narrow window, is it's a fully committed member of Europe. It's English speaking. It's got a very, very good economy by European standards. I think there are lots of opportunities for people who eventually maybe make a decision to make Ireland their home. And it's really a fantastic passport. The Irish passport, if you ever do get to the point where you acquire one and get citizenship, is a great passport, not only from a travel perspective, but for access to the EU and more importantly to the UK as well, which makes it quite unique. So it is an English-speaking country, so none of these scary language tests. And then the education system is also ranked amongst the top globally, and really good universities over there. So for people looking for a plan B and possibly a plan A, and we're seeing more people looking, unfortunately, to physically relocate from South Africa, this is a really neat and tidy way of getting into Ireland. So, yep, without further ado, Sarah, I'm just going to ask you if you can just give us a quick overview of the actual program from a Sable perspective, and then we'll climb into the real business of the IDLF. Thank you.
Thanks, Andy. So the Immigrant Investor Programme is a route to securing Irish residency. So it's a stamp for permission, which effectively is a permanent residency for you and your family. One application, you can include your partner or your spouse and children up to the age of 24. If children are aged over 18, they do need to be enrolled in full-time tertiary education to qualify to be included on a family application. Key to this program is that you can secure this permanent residency almost indefinitely. There are renewals that would need to happen, but they're very straightforward. It's currently an online renewal process. So you can actually safeguard and create that plan B for you and your family on the basis that you might wish to relocate further in the future. So to qualify for the program, the main applicant does need to demonstrate a net wealth of 2 million euros, and the investment via the approved fund option, which is now the only option, is a 1 million euro investment. The stamp for permission holders you can move to Ireland if you so wish from the moment that it's approved, but you're not required to. It's got very minimum stay requirements. You just need to spend 1 day a year in Ireland for the first 5 years, and after that, that actually falls away too. So it's an excellent plan B, and particularly if you've got family members that potentially may look to relocate to Ireland. The whole family does not need to relocate together. That stamp for permission would enable yourself to move ahead of your children or your children to move ahead of you. You really can maximize the opportunity for each family member to suit your individual needs. The beauty of the stamp for permission is that because it's permanent residency, it means it does count towards your reckonable residence when applying for citizenship by naturalization. So it means that if you do have children that maybe would want to utilize the wonderful tertiary education facilities and opportunities in Ireland, they could potentially move to Ireland rather than spending their time there on a study visa, which doesn't count towards naturalization, towards, to securing your citizenship. Your children spend 3 or 4 years studying in Ireland. They walk out of university into a booming job market, an English-speaking economy, and then they complete the total time of 5 years. So your study period plus your time in Ireland to then be able to naturalize as an Irish citizen. So to naturalize, you do need physical presence in Ireland. It's important to note that, but there's no timeline on when you would need to complete that. You can secure your permanent residency, continue to renew it indefinitely, and move over at the time is right. As Andy mentioned, an Irish passport provides the freedom to live, work, study, or retire in Ireland, but also in any EU country, EU member states, I should say. Hopefully we don't have any more future exits. And it also provides UK permanent residency. There's no language test for that residency or citizenship. The stamp for visa permission itself gives you exclusively rights in Ireland. So you can live, work, study, retire in Ireland. To enjoy further benefits, you would need to naturalize as a citizen. So just to recap the actual investment parameters. So investors must demonstrate a net wealth of at least 2 million euros. That 2 million can be held in any asset class, but there would need to be 1 million that would be liquid for you to be able to make the approved investment fund. Previously, there were 4 different routes into the Immigrant Investor Programme, 4 qualifying investment routes. But now, with the termination of the programme, the approved investment fund and €1 million is the only option that is actually open, whereby we're able to lodge applications. This program, when compared to other programs, has very nominal government application fees. It's a straightforward €1,500 family application fee, and there are some due diligence fees which would be levied prior to submission of your application, but they're also nominal in the grand scheme of your total investment. I'm going to hand over now to Andrew for him to drill down further into who the IDLF are and what they do and how their fund works. Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks, Sarah, and thanks, Andy, for the introduction. And thank you, everyone, for taking time out today to join us in effectively the last chance saloon as we talk about the Irish Immigrant Investor Programme and the fact, as has been announced, that we are in a very short window of opportunity now for the last applications to that programme. Personally, I'm hugely disappointed to be speaking to you today online instead of speaking to you in a few weeks in person, which, as Andy said, we have been planning a roadshow in South Africa. So I suppose better online than nothing at all, but it's a huge disappointment not to be there in person. I also have to add to the record, Andy gave a very succinct number of reasons as to why you should consider Ireland, but he forgot a really important reason, and that is, of course, that Ireland now has the best rugby team in the world. So, it's about time that I think you should recognise that and start to wear a different colour green jersey for the World Cup at least. So with that, we'll move into to the facts of the matter and a little bit of description of the Irish Diaspora Loan Fund. So the IDLF was established and is regulated as a Central Bank of Ireland regulated fund. We were set up exclusively to meet the needs of the Immigrant Investor Programme initially. And so all of the capital that we raise in the fund has come from individual families who are looking for a safe, secure, well-regulated option to invest with the sole purpose of securing their stamp 4 permission to either live in Ireland or to have that plan B, as Sarah described. So regardless of the scheme closing, there has been a derogation and a recognition that the regulated investment funds, such as IDLF, can continue to raise capital through the programme for at least another 3 months. So that gives us a very unique opportunity, I think, to help families who are maybe having to accelerate decisions that they had hoped to take over a longer period of time, or clients that we're already working with, that we can help them through the process and ensure that they get their permission. We were established by one of Ireland's most successful financial services entrepreneurs, a gentleman called Terry Clune. So we fit within a much larger financial services group of companies, of which taxback.com is one, plus a number of others. So really, even though we are quite a small team here in IDLF, we benefit from being part of a much, much larger international organization, all of which is associated with international financial transactions of some fashion. So regulation, compliance, due diligence, all of those things are kind of in the DNA of what we do in the group. Our fund, I suppose, is a little different to other investment funds maybe that you would look at, in that we are not structured as an equity fund, in that we raise capital, but then we deploy that as senior secured debt to support Irish businesses in line with the government's requirements for the IIP. And in doing that, we always take security over the assets that we lend to. So typically, we will lend to a 70% loan to value, which means that the asset that we hold as security is always worth at least 30% more than the loan that we have provided. So that makes sure that the investor's money effectively is asset-backed every time we put it out to work. Our funds are structured as a 5-year closed-ended fund, which means that the day you invest, you know exactly the day that the fund winds up and all of the shareholders are redeemed. So it takes away that sometimes confusion or lack of transparency around how and when do I get my capital back. With the IDLF option, it's really clear, you know exactly the date that the fund winds up and your funds are returned. So the minimum investment period required by the government is 3 years. The maximum, according to our fund, is 5 years. So depending on when you get through the government approval process, which roughly takes about 9 months at the moment, you will be investing somewhere between 3 and 5 years. So that kind of gives you some sense of what the lock-in period is. So the fund only has two really simple objectives. The first is to preserve shareholder capital. So all of the investors that invest in our fund, our first and single objective is to protect that capital. Nobody is incentivized or rewarded in the fund to strive for massive returns. Our first job is to protect the shareholder capital. Second objective is to use that source of money to support Irish businesses and to issue them with low-cost supportive finance to help them to grow, extend, and ultimately employ more people. So who do we lend money to? Again, under the instructions of the government, the areas where they want to see this money deployed is into locally owner-operated hotels, nursing homes, elderly care facilities, social and affordable housing scheme development, and also student accommodation. To date, we have focused exclusively on hotels and nursing homes, primarily because we can go back and we can see an operating performance history over 3 or 5 years. That allows us to do very good due diligence and build confidence that we're lending to a business that knows how to manage itself and can operate profitably. So it's really important that we spend our time to do the right due diligence. And it's probably true that we would reject 8 or 9 deals for every 1 deal that we would actually do. So that gives us a really strong opportunity to pick the very best opportunities to lend to. And we will only lend as the senior lender. So we always take the full security against the fixed and floating assets of the business. So here's just some small pictures of some of our hotels and nursing homes that we support. And as you can see, they're all quite unique. All of them are located outside of Dublin City. So we very much focus on bringing new money into regional Ireland. You know, there's a very strong concentration here in Dublin, but sometimes it's harder if you're a business owner in some of these beautiful locations in the west of Ireland to access the right kind of capital. So we exclusively support business owners along the beautiful scenic parts of the country. And that strategy actually, you know, ironically served us very well during COVID, where all of these hotels continued to perform very, very well during COVID. Granted, some of them had to close for periods of time under the government lockdown. But because the economy is so strong here, the government were able to afford to pay very significant supports to help those businesses when they were shut. And then, of course, when they were open and the Irish people weren't going to Spain or Portugal or Italy for our holidays, we all flocked to these beautiful hotels around the countryside and filled them and spent loads of money. So the hotels actually, and 2 of our hotels actually had their 2 most profitable years ever during COVID. So I think that's, you know, testament both to the resilience of the sector here, the ingenuity and the entrepreneurial skill of the owners, and the fact that predominantly these businesses are serving a local market and they're not relying on international tourism. So our approach is very much to take a kind of a soup to nuts approach with our clients. You know, we will work very closely with Sarah and her colleagues in Sable to help you to prepare an application. My colleague Pauline here is our senior project manager and our immigration specialist. So she would be your point of contact to pull that application file together. We are authorized as a regulated entity to file those applications directly with the government. So there's no need to engage an immigration lawyer here in Ireland, which again reduces the costs. But apart from, you know, preparing the applications and lodging them, of which we have a 100% track record, we also see ourselves as the kind of the local concierge desk. So, you know, we typically find some of our time answering questions around, you know, the specifics of the fund or the specifics of making an application, but very often we're asking questions around, you know, what's it like to live here? Where do we find a nice house? You know, how do we get our children into schools? You know, all of those practical, just common sense questions. So we act as that kind of trusted guide to help people initially make the right decision for themselves and their family. And then after they've been approved and they have invested and received their stamp 4, we're certainly very happy to help people as they come to Ireland for 1 day a year, which is all that's required to maintain that stamp 4. But for those families that choose to come here, we do continue that relationship with them and help them if they're looking to find, as I say, places to live, schools for their children, just simple introductions to lawyers, accountants, bank managers, that type of thing. And we try to build a community of our clients when they're here. So at least they feel they're not alone. And then we help them to integrate through social activities that we would have here into the wider business community. And in some cases, help them find other opportunities, either for work or for alternative investments. But of course, we would say, as you would expect, that Ireland's wonderful and everything's super and we're great people. But I thought it'd be useful just to show a couple of slides that give our clients' view. So we conducted a survey of our clients towards the end of last year, and these are their quotes, so direct quotes as to the reasons why they selected Ireland above Portugal or anywhere else. And I think, kind of Sarah and Andy at the very start gave a very good summary, but these are the reasons typically that come out again and again. The fact that we speak a version of the English language, the economy is very strong and continues to be the strongest and fastest growing economy in Europe. The fact that they have this flexible approach where you can maintain the full permission by just visiting for 1 day a year, or you can convert that into living here permanently. And other things, being part of Europe, the particular Irish culture and I suppose our love of the crack, and that's spelled C-R-A-I-C, just for those that aren't aware, which typically means that we enjoy good conversation and music and dance, and typically that's lubricated a little bit with a pint of Guinness. So the quality of life here is very good, and I think that comes out again and again for people who visit. So then we asked them, well, why did they select IDLF? And this is kind of a moot point at the moment, because I'm afraid you guys don't have a choice because we're the only option available. But when there was a number of options, we asked them why IDLF. And we were very pleased to hear these were the kind of comments that we got back, that it was about a sense of security. It was the fact that we were reputable. We have a strong board of directors, which includes a former Prime Minister of Ireland. Very pleased to hear that they found us to be professional, and they were happy to recommend us to their friends. And I think we really, Pauline and I and the rest of the team, we really measure our success by how many referrals we get from existing clients. And that's always a measure, I think, that somebody has been happy with the service that we have provided. And then this quote came actually from one of our South African clients. I won't bore you by reading it all. You'll have access to this afterwards to read it in detail. But the kind of language is hopefully what you've been hearing so far, which is they started looking for a plan B. And the fact that we speak English was really important. And then as they got to know us, they became more and more comfortable. And in fact, this family who were looking for a plan B have now converted that to a plan A, and they're now living here in Ireland. So that was a really positive experience that they had of going through the whole application and investment. It's important. I guess we forget sometimes here in Ireland that COVID still exists. We're back fully to normality here. I had a conversation just this morning actually with a gentleman who's based in Hong Kong, who was apologizing for not being in touch recently, and he explained that he had lost his father, 2 of his uncles, and 2 of his aunts to COVID in the last month. So it still exists. Thankfully, as I say, here in Ireland, we've got through it very well. And in fact, as you can see from the headlines here, Bloomberg actually last year, based on research they conducted, concluded that Ireland was the most resilient country in the world in terms of dealing with COVID. So the impact of COVID on Ireland was much less than in other countries. And there's a number of reasons for that. One being the strength of the economy. So, the negative economic impact didn't materialize. And that was also partly due to the fact that a lot of our industry here is in the medtech space or in pharmaceuticals or in software. So, we continue to export all the way during COVID. And in fact, our exports are growing at 40% year on year at the moment, which is unique in Europe. So really, just to summarize, I think you've heard today from all of us that Ireland and the IIP, offers a really useful, flexible Plan B option, but can very simply and very quickly be turned into a plan A. And actually, Ireland is a great country to come and visit and to live and work in and educate your children. We believe, and our clients believe, that IDLF offers a very reputable, safe, secure option for people willing to or wishing to secure residency in Ireland. And as we've said, there's a short window of opportunity now until the middle of May in order to file an application and to try and secure your permission in Ireland. Thank you very much, Andy.
Well, thanks very much, Andrew. Are you sure you're not actually in South Africa? I'm just, to have 2 or 3 little power cuts during a presentation. I think you might have sneaked down in preparation. Anyway.
Well, I'll blame Google Chrome. I think that's the problem.
Good. So, yeah, IT issues. Yeah, thanks very much for that. I think very informative and nice and concise. Just very quickly, let's just talk about the turnkey solution. I think what's key for everyone to understand on the webinar is that we, between the 2 organizations, offer a turnkey solution. So the sort of the next steps is, if you're interested in going ahead, is obviously to have a chat with Sarah and her team. And then we'll sort of get you going and make the relevant introductions. We'll give you all the timelines and whatever needs to happen. But between the 4 of us on the screens, we really do work hard to make sure that the process is simple, understandable, and yeah, I mean that's pretty much how we do it. And I think I haven't seen too many questions coming in, but I mean, from a time perspective, we are half an hour, which is good. It's great that we got through all that information in half an hour. Maybe what I'm going to do is just ask a couple of the presenters some questions, which I think will help people. And as I said, this is going to go out in a recording version to a lot of other people. So questions that we get asked, and I think we've had 3 or 4 calls today, Sarah and I, with different clients. Practically, bearing in mind this very real deadline, how long does it take to process an application, just to ensure that we get a secured application in so that we can take advantage of the program? Sarah, maybe you could start that and then hand that over to somebody at the IDLF.
Yeah, so absolutely. So from our side, the key thing to understand is actually the bulk of the documents that are required for this application are in support of your source of net wealth and your source of funds. In terms of the documents required for you as individuals, they're much more straightforward. Passport, bio pages, we do need certain documents apostilled. There'll be some Home Affairs documents, police clearances, but they're all documents to which we and my casework team are very familiar with. We can guide you through ways to expedite the issue of those documents, and it's actually quite straightforward to pull a full file together. In addition to that, the Irish authorities have one very straightforward application form. You're not filling in reams of 6 different application forms and different forms per individual. So it's also, we streamline that. But between myself and Pauline, we would guide you through everything that you need to provide. We absolutely do still have time to proceed and to lodge an application before the deadline. If we've discussed this also between ourselves, if there was one document that was potentially missing from an application file, there may be still the means to be able to supply it and then to provide, a copy of a marriage certificate, for example, at a later stage should it be required. But we review everybody's application on its own merits and on an individual basis, and we are here to guide you through it to make sure that you can be assured of a successful application.
Thanks, Sarah.
Sure, Pauline, if you have further comments.
Welcome, Pauline.
Yeah, thanks, guys, and lovely to be here today. So to reiterate basically what Sarah said, we work hand in hand together to pull together an application for the Irish programme. I work hand in hand with Sarah, advising her along the way on what's needed. Exactly. So every case is different. But once you have all your documentation together, then what happens on my side, I suppose, is we engage with a third-party risk management company to carry out a due diligence report on the main applicant. That usually takes 2 weeks. And then once that's complete, we should be at the stage to submit an application. So I would be the one submitting the application on your behalf here in Ireland to the Department of Justice. So once you have everything together, depending on how much time it will take you. From my side, then it should take no more than 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks to submit the application.
Great, thank you. And we've got a question here from Tanya. Do you need to still apply for a Schengen visa every time you have to travel to other EU countries on the stamp 4? I think, Pauline, you can answer that.
Yeah, so Ireland is not part of the Schengen area, so yes, you would, or you would need the particular visa to go to whichever country using your South African passport.
Okay, great. And then Tanya's also got another question. How would one add a minor child to your permission?
Yeah, so if you mean as in later, at a later stage, once the main applicant is approved, you can include a minor child just by providing their birth certificate and passport, and then they can be added to your permission at any stage. Once you are approved and everything is in place, then the minor can be added at a later stage.
Great, thank you. Andrew, a question for you. When do I need to make my investment? Part with my hard-earned capital.
Only when you have received your approval from the government. So maybe differently to places like Portugal, where you need to invest first and then seek your permission. In Ireland, you make your application to the Irish government. The approval process takes around 9 months. And it's only at that point, when you have received a letter from the government saying you've met all the criteria, you're now invited to complete your investment. And typically you have 90 days at that time to then complete your investment. So you're really only investing when you know that you have been approved by the government. So it's not as if you have to put the €1 million into escrow or do anything in advance of having that approval from the government.
Great. Thanks very much for that. And then a question, this is probably for you, Pauline. After approval, at what point do I need to make my first trip to Ireland?
Yeah, so once you have your full approval, so everything is done, your investment and everything, you get your full approval letter from the Department of Justice here in Ireland, and your permission starts from that date. So first of all, you get 2 years permission, and you are invited to come into Ireland to register your permission. And we usually, there's no timeline on it, but we usually suggest that you do it in the first year. So you have then plenty of time for your renewal process, which is at the 2-year mark. Now, Sarah did mention earlier that the renewal is online at the moment, but we don't know if that's going to continue online. But within the first year, you should try to make it into Ireland to register your permission. So that's getting your biometrics done, and you'll receive your residency card, or your IRP card that we call it here, at that stage. Then at the renewal stage at 2 years, it's renewed basically by showing you copies of your passports, your residency cards. You'd have to get an affidavit of good character done up to just basically state that you haven't become a burden on the Irish state, and very straightforward. And then you receive 3 years then after that. So that's your first 5-year block of permission. You should then, at the 5-year mark, have your investment returned. And then you can renew for a further 5 years continuously, even without coming into Ireland for 1 day a year.
Great, thank you. And a quick question, and this is again a travel question. If you have the stamp 4 permission, what does that mean in terms of needing to travel to the UK? Does one still need a UK visa?
So I think it's important to understand that the stamp 4 permission itself gives you the rights inside Ireland to live, to work, to study, to retire in Ireland. It doesn't, because Ireland is not part of Schengen, it doesn't give you any formal visa-free rights while you're on a stamp 4 permission. So if you're still on a South African passport, you're still going to need a UK visa and your South African passport to travel to the UK, and you're still going to need a valid Schengen visa and your South African passport to travel around the Schengen states. It's only if you spend the 5 years in Ireland and naturalize as an Irish citizen to secure your Irish passport that then you've actually got visa-free access as an Irish national to 188 different countries around the world, and you've got then your permanent residency status in the UK, and you've got the freedom of movement throughout all other EU member states. So on its own, the stamp 4 doesn't grant you any visa-free benefits, but once you've naturalized as a citizen, you've really got one of the strongest passports in the world.
Thank you, Sarah. I think that covers that quite nicely. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to flick across to the next slide, and those are the contact details of Andrew and Pauline. And I think it's probably a good time to wrap things up. But before we do that, I'm just going to ask our good friends from the IDLF, Andrew and Pauline, please both, if you've got anything that you think is really pertinent that you'd like to say before Sarah, and then I will wrap up the webinar. Thank you.
Nothing really to add other than to kind of express our gratitude to our friends in Sable for pulling this together at very short notice, and to thank everyone for tuning in today. I think we are genuinely disappointed the program is coming to an end, because I think the thing that we enjoy the most in our job, and I'm sure Pauline will attest to this, is actually working with the families that are keen to secure residency in Ireland. So we will continue, IDLF will continue to do its work as a regulated investment fund, but we will now have to raise our capital elsewhere through more traditional methods. I think the thing that we're going to miss most is working with those lovely families, and indeed working with trusted, professional, competent partners like Sable. So, yeah, in the meantime, we have 3 months of heavy lifting to do. So we look forward to having hopefully a number of people who are on the webinar today get in touch through Sarah, and hopefully we can help some of you guys get your permission in Ireland as well.
Thanks, Andrew. And Pauline, have you got any words of wisdom?
Yeah, just to I suppose reiterate what Andrew said as well. We will really miss working with families, but for now, in the next 3 months, we really look forward to working with whoever is going to go through the process, and just the time is now really to get going. If you are really interested, we are here to help you. We're here to hold your hand the whole way. So between myself and Sarah, do get in touch if you are really interested in going ahead.
Thanks so much. Sarah, before I wrap up, is there anything that you think we need to just let people know? We have got a tight timeline.
I just want to say, yeah, thanks to Andrew and Pauline for joining us today. But I would just also just say that when there's a lot of information in the marketplace. These type of deadlines create panic, they create confusion, they create a lot of misinformation. So I just advocate that if this is something you are seriously considering, just make sure that you've had the conversation with myself, with Pauline, that you are 100% sure of what the benefits are going to be, and that they are going to be suitable for you and your family. The great thing about the Ireland program is that you can safeguard this plan B and keep it tucked away in a pocket for you to use whenever you need to do so. Unlike other plan B options out there, you don't have that language issue. You've got a booming economy and an abundance of job options. So it's a great plan B, even if you love South Africa. I mean, I'm British and I live in South Africa. I've been here for 12 years. I love it. I don't envisage leaving, but we're all wondering, what are our children going to do? What is it going to look like for them? And maybe they do need opportunity. So this is really a superb way to have that nice safety net, as I termed it earlier, but also know that if you suddenly need to get on a plane and go, you can go to an English-speaking country. You've got low unemployment levels with skill sets that would be recognized. You really could set up a life very easily with a lot of benefit for you and your family. So I would just seriously consider it, and please do reach out to me if you want any further information. My direct email address, that's the easiest one to remember, is just IM for investment migration at sableinternational.com.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thanks.
Well, I suppose that brings me to the end, and once again, just to thank Andrew and Pauline so much, and we've really enjoyed partnering with you over the years, and I think we're going to have a really I think a vigorous end to the dealings with this program. But just from my side, to everybody who's made time to come and listen to us today, first of all, thank you all very much. I know that this is a busy year and there's lots happening, but certainly in the South African context, an enormous amount of uncertainty and concern. At Sable, we never advocate that you jump ship and run. We're seeing a lot of people who are quite stressed and panicking, and in that kind of state of mind, a lot of people make bad decisions. So just take a deep breath. There isn't an enormous amount of time to make a decision about this, but just think about what you're looking to achieve. If you're not sure, please give us a call. We do this all day, every day. We've got thousands and thousands of clients. But the one thing that I can assure you is that we've been around for 26 years. For us, it's about solving and creating a good solution, and more importantly, working with partners who are absolutely aligned with the values of Sable and what we try and give to our clients, and that you certainly have with all of us on the screen today. So that just leaves me to say thanks to everyone, and goodbye and good luck with your decisions, and please be in touch. Thank you.